Feeling safe and at ease when you're learning a new skill is essential. For that reason, holding and support techniques are really crucial when teaching anyone swimming and water safety skills, whether your students are infants, toddlers, school-age children, or adults.
Your primary goal is to build up your students' trust in whomever is holding or supporting them so that ultimately they will have the confidence to venture forth on their own.
And the techniques you use will depend on the skill you're teaching, as well as the size, the swimming ability, and the comfort level of your students.
With your youngest students, infants and toddlers, you'll be teaching the actual holding and support techniques to their parents or caregivers.
We're going to progress from those techniques demonstrating the most secure holds and support to those showing the least as your students progress in ability. Now keep in mind, however, that no matter what technique you use, hand and arm placement will vary as students get bigger physically and their skills advance. These first positions work really well for getting a beginning student to adjust to the water, blow bubbles, and enter and exit the water.
The hip straddle is going to be a familiar position to anyone who's ever carried a little child around on their hip, which makes the hip straddle a great holding position to help an infant or young child get used to the water. Stand in the water with the child in a vertical position straddling your hip. Support the child's back by reaching around the child to hold the upper thigh. Use your other hand to hold the child's hand. Next, take a look at the chin support position. Squat so that the water is at shoulder level. The child is in a prone position, with the water at chin level. Just like the hip straddle, you can use this holding technique with students who need the most support. Hold the child under the upper chest and shoulders, with the child's chin resting on the heels of your palms to prevent the face from accidentally submerging. With the hug position, squat so that the water is at shoulder level. The student is in a prone position with the water at upper chest level. The student's head rests on your shoulder with his arms positioned loosely over your shoulders. The student's legs are extended while you support his thighs and knees from underneath. The hip support on front position is most effective with toddlers and preschoolers. Stand so that the water is at shoulder level. The student is in a prone position with the water at upper chest level. With your arms extended, support the student at the hips and abdomen. The student's shoulders should rest on your forearms. In addition to water adjustment, these next holding and support positions are good for students who are ready to experience the front kick, front glide, underwater exploration, and drafting. For the shoulder support position, stand with the water at shoulder level. The student is in a prone position with the water at upper chest level. Support the student under the armpits. You can adapt this position for an adult by having the student place her hands on your shoulders while you support the student's upper arms. When students are beginning to experience moving their arms in the water, you can support them with the arm stroke position. Brace against the side of the pool by kneeling in shallow water or sitting on the stairs with the water at shoulder level. Balance the student on one knee and guide both arms in an alternating underwater paddling motion. For less secure students, you can encircle the student's body to increase the student's comfort level. The side support is a good technique for practicing any combined arm and leg action. Stand in waist or shoulder level water with the student facing the same direction. The student is in a prone position with the water at chin or neck level. Grasp the student from behind. You can rest the arm that crosses the student's back against the buttocks to keep the legs submerged. To vary this position, place the arm that crossed the student's body palm side up on the student's chest. Then use your other arm to support the student. The cuddle position offers great support for infants and toddlers when they're kicking on their backs or doing the back glide or float. Squat or kneel so that the water is at shoulder level. The child is on her back, with the back of her head resting on your shoulder and her cheek or the side of her head touching your cheek. Place one hand on the child's chest and the other under her waist or lower back to bring the child to a more horizontal position. If the child is floating naturally in a horizontal position, you can offer support by simply grasping the child's chest with both hands. Now let's move on to the hip support on back position, which is good for teaching the kick and back float and glide. Start by squatting or kneeling so that the water is at shoulder level. Extend your arms and support the student at the hip, with the student's head resting on your forearm or chest. The back support position works well for older students, from preschoolers to adults, when you're teaching the back float, glide, and kick. Position yourself so that your shoulders are in the water and you are behind the student. Support the back of the student's head with one hand, and position your other hand in the middle of the student's back for stabilization. Once again, the exact positioning of your hand on the back is going to vary depending on the student's weight and comfort level. Move backwards smoothly to help the student float to a horizontal position. You can also vary this technique by placing one hand in the middle of the student's back and the other on the chin or lower jaw. Support devices can be used with many of these holding and support techniques. But keep in mind that a support device is never a substitute for having students practice swimming on their own. And these devices should only be used with your constant supervision. Always have equipment you plan to use ready before you start your class. Kickboards are good support devices for learning kicking on front, rhythmic breathing on front, and rotary breathing. Have your students stand in hip or chest level water. Place the kickboard under the student's forearms so he can grasp the edges of the kickboard with his hands. The student pushes off and maintains a prone position. It really doesn't matter if the student's face is in or out of the water, but you need to remain within arm's reach in case he needs additional stabilization. Using a kickboard is also a good way for preschoolers, school-age children, and adults to practice the back float and kicking on their backs. Have the student stand in chest or shoulder-level water and place the kickboard against his chest and hold it in place. Then the student pushes off the bottom and maintains a back position. A variation of this is to have the student grasp the sides of the kickboard and extend her arms overhead, pushing off in the same manner. Swim bars are also useful for practicing floating and kicking. To practice these skills on the front, have your students place the swim bar under their armpits or extend it out in front as they would a kickboard. To practice the back floating kick, have the student place the swim bar float across her torso. Then push off from the bottom, maintaining her back position. The pool wall, the bottom of a shallow area, a step or a ladder can also be used for support. For example, students can stand facing the pool wall in chest or shoulder level water, and then bracket themselves with one hand grasping the deck or gutter, and the palm of the other hand against the wall. This is great support for practicing kicking on front and rhythmic and rotary breathing.
Understanding when and how you use holding and support techniques will get your students off to a great start, no matter what their age.